Hello, hey there, and welcome into my house. It's Josh Ellis, and I've got Amy Anderson with me. Hey, Amy.
Hi, how are you, Josh?
I'm doing good. We're back for episode 2 here, and this is starting to become a little bit more normal. I'm feeling like Mr. Rogers welcoming all the neighbors.
I definitely think you should be changing your shoes and sweater each time we do this. I think that everybody would really love that.
Yeah, I got a nice comfy cardigan around here somewhere, I'm sure. We had episode 1 where we talked to people about what is a side hustle? Why should you consider a side hustle? What might be a good side hustle for you? And now it's time to get into the nitty gritty, right?
Absolutely. And I am psyched about this one because I think that, this is such a huge topic. We're going to be talking about mindset and attitude and really getting your perspective right and how to figure out what you should be doing. Really just, there's so much we're going to cover in this episode that's so helpful and really foundational, whether you're just starting a side hustle or you've been in it a while and you're ready to ramp it up.
Yeah, mindset is really the all-encompassing way to put it, but we're talking about self-limiting beliefs, the thing that's holding you back from going solo if you've been thinking about taking the plunge. It could be impostor syndrome. It could be the idea that you might not be able to stay motivated, or that you don't know what side hustle is for you, like what your talents and skills are. And so we've got a great guest to talk to us about that. You've worked with Jeanine Blackwell, right, Amy?
I have. She's a friend. She's been a mentor of mine. I helped her to write her book, and she's a fabulous resource for this. Her community of online business owners really have a lot of experience in this area, and she's a great leader to look to.
Yeah, Jeanine is an expert, among other things, on how to launch an online course. In fact, there is a feature written by her in the May-June issue of Success Magazine, the one with Jay Shetty on the cover. It's available everywhere right now. Jeanine's company helps people take their ideas and passions and turn them into profitable businesses. She worked with Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs of all levels, and we're going to learn how we can get her firsthand experience and unique perspectives to help solopreneurs and side hustlers overcome any challenge. She's the author of The Expert Called You. She's been featured in Inc., Fast Company, and, as I said, Success Magazine. Jeanine, welcome.
Hello. How are you guys doing? I'm
Doing
excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Doing great. It's nice to welcome Jeanine from her home in Louisiana. How's it going down there?
It is going great. And actually, I'm in my office. I feel like I'm on vacation because I escaped the house, came to the office, and I'm here by myself, which is a little weird. It's kind of quiet. But yeah, it's really nice. Everybody's in like an alternate reality right now. So this is that alternate reality for me right now.
When your side hustle is really advanced, you move from the home office to the actual office. Very nice.
That's right.
So it's great to have you here.
Great to see
Thanks
you.
for having me. I'm excited to be here. I really am. It's a really timely conversation that it's crazy what we're all in right now because there's so many shifts, and the shifts are acting like I keep calling it a pressure cooker, but not in a bad way. It's kind of like when you put something in the pressure cooker or the Instant Pot and it kind of accelerates and cooks up faster, right? That's what I think is happening with all the shifts right now. We're seeing everything's accelerating, and this whole movement to online and people wanting to pursue a dream, do the things that they've always imagined doing. All of that is being amplified right now. So it's exciting to be here, and I'm excited to be here with everybody listening because, like Josh, I assume if you're listening, you've been on the fence about this or you're in the trenches and you want to go faster too. So it's a perfect timing and a great topic.
Jeanine, I wanted to quickly just really kick us off with something that I've heard you speak about so many times, and I've talked to other people who've worked with you, and they just really feel like you get this in a way that a lot of people don't. So when people are stuck, okay, why are they stuck? I mean, what is it that really keeps us from moving forward with something? Like you said, whether you're already in the trenches and maybe you feel like you've plateaued, or maybe you're just trying to get something off the ground, what is it that keeps us stuck?
Well, I think we all, we're asking ourselves that all the time because it doesn't matter where you are, which is what you just hit on. It shows up, right? And I get to watch a lot of people in this journey going from I have a desire to I'm looking for an idea to I found an idea. Now I got to make the idea happen, and that whole journey, all along the way, that stuckness can show up. I think the number one thing that shows up as a source of getting stuck in that movement from I want to do it to wow, I'm in it and I'm creating it, is that we have this tendency to want to have proof that the thing is going to manifest just the way we imagine. Like we want to have proof that this is going to be successful before we go do the thing. And, if you think about that, like logically, if we all sit here and we think about that, we think, okay, that makes no sense, right? It would be like if all of us here as entrepreneurs or on the journey to be an entrepreneur, if we were all filmmakers, it would be the equivalent of saying, okay, I have this, I think, great idea for a movie, and I'm just going to wait. And the minute that Oscar nomination comes in the mailbox, I'm going to get started filming, right? And when you look at that, you think that doesn't work that way, right? My favorite commercial is like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And it's true in what we're all wanting to do too, is that the proof that it's going to work comes in the doing. So it's a little paradoxical because sometimes we get stuck in the doing because we're waiting for the proof to show up. And the people that are really successful, like when we all watch them and we think, wow, she's doing what I want to do, or wow, he just launched something I'd love to have launched, they have the same doubts. I mean, I think that's the thing we all have to realize is everybody has that, but the answers come in the doing. And I want to get a little tactical because I think sometimes when we talk about shifts, it's hard to think, okay, I get the mindset shift, but like, what does that look like? If I'm going to get into the doing. Getting into the doing, it looks like if you have that idea to say, what is one thing I could do to get into action around that idea? And getting into action in it means we have to kind of rub the idea up against somebody else. Like a lot of us as solopreneurs, side hustlers, like we're working by ourselves. We're at our kitchen table, we're at Starbucks, and we're with our idea by ourselves. When you can get the idea and connect it with somebody else, like potentially somebody who could help with that idea, that's how you start gaining the confidence. And it might be that you get the idea out and somebody says, oh, I don't know, what I really need is this. And there's huge value in that too, because it's when you put it out and you serve the first person with your idea or the first 10 people with your idea, they're going to help you make the idea better. And that's where the confidence comes from. It comes in the doing.
We've kind of, over the years, as we talk to solopreneurs and really on the subject of side hustling, we've sort of encouraged them to, if you have a full-time gig, keep that. Really do this on the side and gather some of that proof, get some of that experience, gain some of those mentors as you go. And to your use of the word shift, there will come a time, probably when you're making more from your side hustle than your day job, if not sooner, when it's really just obvious that it's time to go for it. Is that I'll ask Amy the question too. Is that the way that both of you kind of experience this?
Well, I'll give it to Jeanine first. I'd love to hear her feedback on that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because Amy, you said there's always risk, right? And I think there's perceived risk, there's real risk. And, one thing that I think about when it comes to starting a business is that I'm a big fan of what they call bootstrapping, right? So if you haven't heard that term, bootstrapping, it just means like pulling it up by your bootstraps, right? I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to start this business. And you're doing it with the least amount of outlay of cash that you can. And you're doing it in a way where you are minimizing your risk as much as possible. So I agree with you 100%, Josh, like being able, if you've got income coming in and then saying, wow, how can I go out and start to test this? That is a great way to do that. I've had the experience where when I moved out of the role that I was in corporate and I worked in a great company. And I was able to continue to work with that company, and they became a client. So sometimes like that transition, you can look around and say, maybe I've been thinking like this is an either or conversation, but maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's like an and, like I could do this and that, or it's not that I either have to stay at this company or leave this company. Maybe there's a way that you can transition into another role. So I think there's a lot of ways to make these decisions in a way that you're gaining that confidence, because taking small steps can help us gain the confidence. And it's not that all or nothing weight on you, because, you know, the all or nothing puts us in this kind of, it's scary, right? It could be a scary thing, which can really freeze up our creativity. So Amy, I'm curious what your initial thought was when Josh threw that out.
Well, I love what you just said, actually, that fear can freeze up your creativity. I deal with that a lot and working both with myself as a writer and with my clients who are trying to write books. And I know that for me, transitioning out of full-time was I've done it twice. And so back in 2005, when I first went out freelance, I had saved some money, but I didn't have any clients. Like, I did not do it in a really great way, not a way I would recommend. Okay. But I managed to stay freelance for a few years. And then I had the privilege to start working at Success. And in the 4 years I worked full time at Success Partners with Success Magazine as a senior editor and working with all the experts and amazing people there, I learned so much about running a business and, you know, personal development. There were a lot of pieces missing for me that I didn't know were missing. And I think that's one of the reasons we say, hang on to your job at first, because when you first start that side hustle, I know this, you've heard this a million times, but you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. There are things that you don't know yet that you're not even aware you need to know until you're out there in it. Like, I thought a freelance writer, you just need a laptop and somebody to pay you checks, right? Like, how hard can that be? Okay, it's a lot harder than that. So the truth is that once I relaunched my business in 2012, I had a completely different vision, and I had an actual business plan, and I had clients lined up, and Success Partners did become one of my clients as well. So really that transition, although it may have to be sudden. For some of you right now, you're suddenly in the position where you need to start something. But if you can hang on to another source of income, yes, I highly recommend doing that for as long as possible. And I even saved as much of my income as possible too, just as, you know, to have that nice cushion when I went out on my own. And I think that even though it was scary, there's a point where, you know, okay, I'm either going to do this now or I'm going to regret it later. And that voice inside you too, I think, is credible. And you've really got to try to listen to that as well.
Amy, I know that you've talked about in your side hustler column that it's totally doable to bundle a few different side hustles. And so let's say that there's someone listening who wants to be a solopreneur graphic designer, but they've been laid off from their company and they don't have that client base built up. You can do something like delivering for Uber Eats while you build out that client base. So, like, there are in what we used to call the U economy, there are gigs out there where you can get some sort of straight job-esque income coming in while you're slowly growing your side hustle.
Absolutely. And especially if you're, well, anybody really right now, there are still those gig jobs available. Although things have changed because people may not want you to come to their home, the delivery stuff still works, the driving, people are still getting out some when needed, right? But I think the main thing is rethinking how what you're doing can be placed online. And that is where I think a lot of people come up against obstacles. I've talked to people in my local business networking group, and they're saying things to me like, you know, yes, I've had this successful yoga studio, but I can't take this online because I'm just not a tech person, or my clients won't want to come online for this. And I think the world is changing. And so maybe those ideas that you thought were obstacles before now really may not be as big of an obstacle as you think. And I think Jeanine is a great person to speak to this.
That's a great point. I think, well, there's a lot going on here. And I think Perfect timing, right? Universe Delivered, Eckhart Tolle. I know a lot of you guys follow Eckhart's work, but Eckhart, I saw a little video clip of his, and the essence of it was this, right? There's this, in what we're all going through, there's the situation, the reality, right? And then there's the story you tell yourself about the situation. And it was perfect. Like, that was one of the first things I saw. I'm drinking my coffee in the morning and I went, okay, this is the equivalent of my meditation for the day, right? I'm going to meditate on this. And it's true, because Amy just hit on that, right? Like, there's the situation that is, and then there's the story that you tell yourself about what's going on. So if you tell yourself as the yoga studio that, oh, my people won't do that, or, oh, I don't know how to do that, then there is truth in that, because the story you're telling yourself is what's going to limit what you see as opportunities. And just as you said that, I'm thinking, okay, in our community, and I mainly work with people who want to create online expressions of their work. So they're an expert in something, and it could be parenting, it could be cooking, it could be yoga, it could be leadership, it could be horse training, like whatever. And they're an expert in that thing. And what they're doing is saying, hey, I want to create an online course to teach people something. I want to teach online live. I want to coach people over the phone. And I can tell you right now, like, I'm seeing yoga studios who have successfully transitioned from having the physical to quickly creating a way to coach online, doing classes online, doing a membership so they can translate that money they had coming in the studio to, wow, can we translate this over to a membership, and we're going to do live streams. My favorite restaurant, I love this restaurant. It's a local restaurant. Amy, you've been to that restaurant with me, but right across the street from the hotel we stayed at. And they've had to close. So they're transitioning. I just saw them today. They're doing live cooking classes, and bringing that out into the community. There's always a way. So I think the thing we have to ask ourselves is, okay, one question I get a lot is, I'm not really sure what that thing is that I could put out, and I think sometimes we make this more challenging, more of an obstacle. And I think the reason we do it is because it's another dimension of the mindset that we've been talking about here, is that we tend to discount the things that we bring to the table. And here's why. There's a reason for it. And if this isn't just a self-esteem or confidence thing, right? It's that when you're really good at something, you get to this place where you move from, if you look at the competence spectrum, like, you can not even know what you don't know. Like what Amy just said about building business. I don't even know what I don't know. You get in it and you go, oh, wait, now I know what I don't know, right? Now you're consciously incompetent in something. And then you start to get better at it, and you're like, I can do this as long as I think about it and, with a little focus, and you're consciously competent. But when you're good at something, and all of us are good at something, we tend to be unconsciously competent at it. Like, we don't even know how much we know, and we know so much about it that we kind of think that it's common sense for other people to know that thing. That's the place that is usually your opportunity to help other people. It's the thing that you're really good at. And it's also the place that we tend to discount, because you're good at that thing, whether it's reading people, maybe you're a really good listener, maybe you're somebody that can pull a great storyline from somebody, maybe you're somebody who can go in somebody's backyard and have a vision for how this could become an oasis. Maybe you're somebody who's really good at training your dog and you're like the dog whisperer. That talent you have, and that innate ability you have, and that thing that you just hone this ability in through life or whatever, could be training. It's something that somebody else wishes that they had. And I think that's the thing, that when we look at what's going on, we can say, oh, the story is this is a terrible time, or we can say the story is this is a great time. We can say, wow, the story is I don't know, this thing that I have, this isn't really a big thing. Would anybody want to engage with me to help them on that? Or we can say, wow, there are people that are looking for this. I just need to find those people. So I think tactically, one of the things I would really like for everybody here is I'd spend some time thinking, get out your journal and say, I'm going to unpack for a minute all the things that I have skill in. And it's not just skill. It's like maybe there's things that you've done, you've worked retail. Like my early years in college, I got through college, paid my way through college working retail. So I worked at the Limited and I folded a lot of sweaters, my friends, like, like back in the day when everything was like the sweaters.
The fancy way.
Yes, it's a certain way with the clipboard. We had the whole thing we had to do. And I never thought in a million years that would ever be anything that I frankly wanted to go back to doing or would ever have any value, right? But fast forward many years later and I'm doing coaching and consulting, and those years folding sweaters gave me just enough information about how retail works for me to take my coaching and my skills and go target big retailers. Like that's how we landed some of our big retail clients, is being able to talk that language. And so while I would have never mentioned that before, and I never thought it was something, it was a footnote on how I got through school, it actually became something that helped me see, wow, who could I really help? And how could I get more specific with what I do? So what I would do, take out your journal. I mean, most of us have a little extra time right now, like, find a little quiet spot, get out your journal and say, hey, let me think about all the different jobs I've had, right? Let me think about all the kind of quirky things that I'm really passionate about and I love to do. Let me think about the skills, like things that my friends would say, oh, Amy, you're so good at this. I'm going to ask you this because you're so good at that. Or, gee, Josh is a natural at that. Let me ask him what he thinks about it. Those things, when you put them all out, and I like to do it visually, like just sit there and draw it out, map it out, write it out. But when you start to see it, you're seeing this whole picture. It's like a snapshot of all the things you bring to the table. And that's how you can start to look at this and say, gee, where could I add value? Because at the end of the day, when you're thinking about creating a business, a lot of people focus on what could I create? What's the product? What's the course going to be about? What kind of coaching could I do? It's all about what. And the right question is to say, who has a problem that I could help them solve? And if you think about who has a problem that I could help them solve, and you look at your map in front of you, you can start to see probably lots of ideas of people that you could help. I could help somebody organize their closets. I could teach somebody how to have a better relationship with their teen. Like when you look at that, suddenly it's not this really big product you're looking for, as the idea. You're just looking for an answer about how you can help. And here's the story I think we all need to tell ourselves right now that serves all of us and it's going to serve the world, is that there needs to be people showing up with their gifts to help right now. So if you've been on the fence, like, is this the right time to market something, or is this the right time to really do this thing I'm really excited about? I think there's never been a better time. Like, we need everybody showing up to help. And you said Mr. Rogers when we kicked this off, and I thought, I've been thinking about Mr. Rogers for the last couple of weeks. And I saw this quote, maybe some of you guys have seen it on Facebook or Instagram floating around, but it's a quote from Mr. Rogers talking about his mom saying that, in times of shifts like this, look for the helpers, because there's always going to be helpers, right? I've been thinking about that constantly. And if we can all shift the story that we're going to go create this thing we've been wanting to do because we're going to show up and be a helper, and this is the thing I can help around, what a great story. It's a great story to tell yourself, to push through the self-doubt, because it's your way of getting into action and contributing. And so that's like something I'm just constantly humming, in my head. It's like, let's show up and help, show up and help. And I think that can help us all keep moving.
I love
that.
Yeah, you're talking about sort of finding purpose in a way, understanding what you're good at, and I think a lot of people identify with what you were saying about sort of being the things that you're good at. In what you're good at, you're subconscious of. You've already that you don't even realize that other people aren't good at them. We're working on an upcoming issue of the magazine where we're dealing a lot with the subject of vision. And I think this is vision. I mean, people think of the word vision and they assume it's, a leader of a company of 30,000 people and they have big plans for the next 10 years. But vision can be, it can be really sort of introspective of who I am and what I'm going to do with the gifts that I have. So I love the way you put that, Jeanine.
I love what you just said. I want to add to that because I 1,000% agree with you. Like when we think about vision, and you know, especially when you've been dreaming of creating something on the side, and maybe you dream even bigger, you know, that this ultimately is the thing that you want to do full time. And I think sometimes we make that so big that that's part of what shrinks our capacity to go do it, you know, because this thing that I'm seeing, it feels really big and I don't know how to do that thing. But what you just said, Josh, I think is the thing we can all really zone in on is just unpack for a minute. Like get that journal out again. You could tell I'm a big journaler, but get your journal out, get whatever, notebook, whatever. And just spend some time and bring it back in for a minute. You know, like bring that idea back into you and say, okay, what do I really want to create? And let's not make it about the business yet. And let's not make it about, you know, what I'm going to offer and all that stuff. Just come back in a little bit and say, hey, what do I want? And that's a hard question sometimes for us to answer. You know, I know, and Amy, you mentioned this earlier when we started, like my story, right? But I landed in building an online business that helps people build courses and do things online. I landed there because I started my business doing something else entirely. And I left my role and I went out to start my consulting business. I was a chief learning officer, so my background was in learning and development. And so I went out and I did what I saw other coaches and consultants doing. And I just started coaching and consulting, right? I was selling my time and I'm flying to different companies and every week I'm traveling. And, you know, I woke up and that was not what I wanted at all. Like what I wanted is probably what most of you guys want when you think about creating something as a business. Is I wanted freedom. I wanted to do great work. I wanted to have impact. I wanted all of that. And what I didn't ask myself is, what does that look like for you, Jeanine? You know, if I had done that, I would have never started my business and designed it the way I did, where I'd be traveling all the time because I had 3 young daughters at home. Like freedom to me looked like I want to be in the car at Carline and make the loop and pick them up and then go home, you know, and they go do their homework and I'm doing my work. If I had taken the time to figure out that that's what success looked like for me, I would have went a whole different path sooner in my business. You know, it wasn't until I got into crisis mode that I realized I had to shift and stop doing that and start doing something else. Because I didn't realize that the thing that I was doing was just emulating what I was seeing other people do. So what we can do, you know, in that journal, I would take that journal out and I'd say, okay, what do I want? Back it up and think, what does it look like for me? If I launch this product, if I create my first course, if I do whatever, what will have happened in my life? You know, so what am I going to get up and do every day? Where am I working? Who am I with? What type of clients am I connecting with? What are we talking about all day? You know, that kind of clarity in what you want puts a whole nother layer around the why you're doing it. And here's the bonus, is that if you've been stuck in this place where you don't know what to offer, you don't know what's the right business to start, once you're clear on what your life will look like, what kind of impact you want to create, what kind of people you want to serve, when you're clear on that, you can use that as your filter for every idea coming your way. And you can say, gee, all right, I know what I want. Do I want to get on planes and fly around to companies? I would have said no. I would have said no from the beginning, but I wasn't that clear. And that's why, I was a slow learner. It took me a little while to get to the point where I realized what I had created was a mess for me personally, but you don't have to do that. Like everybody here can say, okay, what do I want? And that can help you decide, you know, what's right for you. What do you say yes to? And what do you say no to?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the most difficult part of that sometimes for people is that maybe they're feeling a sense of urgency, right? And so sometimes we rush into something because we're worried about money or we're worried about getting out there ahead of other people or whatever it is. And really taking that time, like you're saying, to ask yourself what's important to me and what will really work for me personally and what can I sustain long term. Those are such important questions. And in the meantime, if you need the money, there's other ways that you can be getting their money. There are other, like Josh mentioned earlier, there are other gigs you can take. You can take surveys online. You can tutor on Skype. I mean, my gosh, this has to be the boom time for online tutors, I can say, as someone trying to homeschool her child suddenly. Like, it's that there are so many needs out there still that can be fulfilled online. And there are apps and so many opportunities. I know that it can feel, especially if you've come from maybe a well-paying job, it can sometimes feel like a step down. Let's be realistic about that, okay? When I first started freelancing, it was the early days of what is now Upwork and used to be Elance. And I took writing gigs on there for literally 3 cents a word. And I'm going to quote like a supermodel now and say I'd never get out of bed for that these days. But I did that because, for one thing, I needed to pay my bills, and every little bit counts. So if you can combine a few different little gigs while you're doing this evaluation of what's next for me and what's right for me, that's cool. And a lot of us have done that. Okay. I mean, I've been a donut store clerk and a Christmas ornament engraver. Like, I've done all kinds of crazy stuff just to pay the bills while I'm working on what my passion is. So I think a lot of us have been in that boat. So if you're in that boat now, there's no shame in that. And this is a great time to find gigs that you can do, whether it's IT help or running errands or whatever that may be.
Yes, 100%. And, if your vision is you want to, like you said, there's all these little components that you can assemble. I always think of it like Lego blocks, right? So if I'm thinking about what you want to do in your business, and, it's like you can take different things and you can kind of snap them together. Like, let's say a lot of people we work with are coaches, like they might be a life coach or a relationship coach, or maybe they're an author. When they think about the different things they do, a lot of times people want to do those things, but they don't want to do those things all the time. Like, so Amy, as a writer, you have a dedicated amount of time. I'm sure that you're working on your personal projects. There's things, your own books and things you're doing. And then you've got client projects and you've got your community and your courses. And so when you think about how you stack your time up, that's part of that vision of what everybody wants in life. Like, what do you want to get up and do? But let's say your vision is, I want to have an online course, or I want to, create workshops when everybody can travel again. Getting one client, like, instead of it making this thing that it's so big that I've got to go land a ton of people in something I'm creating, getting one client. Like, right now, if you're somebody that you're a storyteller and you want to go help people do better storytelling so they can do better marketing, for example, going to get one small business in your backyard right now that you're watching and you think, this person needs help, I'm going to go reach out and say, hey, I'd like to help. And you could help that person. Yes, if you land them as a client, that's a great way to get that first, flow of revenue coming in from that. But also, it could be a great thing to go help somebody for free right now. Like, to go pick a business or a client that you could go help for free right now, because it's going to get you into the doing that we started this whole conversation with. Like, how you build the confidence is to get in the doing. And what a great time to say, I'm going to get in the doing around this, and I'm going to go help one person with this right now. And here's the thing I would say is, while you're doing it, document it. So notice how you're helping, start to pay attention to your steps. And, if your intention is that you want to start sharing this online, I would document it as far as recording what you're doing, posting about it, set up a little Facebook business page, Instagram profile, start to tell the story about how you're helping somebody or business with what you know, because that's how you get started. You just get started by going out. And I think what you're saying, Amy, is so right on, because if we make this so big, and we make it that it's all or nothing, we're pretty much setting ourselves up that we're never going to make that leap into the thing that obviously everybody here is really wanting to do, or we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
So I think that we've definitely covered some of the ways that people can get unstuck. And Jeanine, you've done a great job in giving people some strategies for kind of overcoming that self-doubt. And and finding their personal vision, what they can bring to the marketplace. Let's talk about something that a lot of people probably have a fear of, is once they do make that leap, that it's going to get hard, and they're going to, without the structure of a day job to report to, they're going to have trouble staying motivated or balancing their priorities. How do you kind of, how do you look at those motivation killers, I guess, and how do you kind of overcome them?
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people here are familiar with Simon Sinek's work, around the why. And I'm a really big believer in getting clear why you're doing what you're doing. And I think at the beginning, it's easy. We have this catalyst, and we want to, usually, it's interesting because I do a lot of work in online marketing, and we test a lot of things in online marketing. And I'm also somebody who comes from the background of brain-based learning. So here's something interesting about all of us as humans. All of us as humans, we're more likely to move into action to avoid something that we don't want to happen than we are to move towards something we do want to happen. Which is, let me just say that again, because I had a hard time getting my head wrapped around this, but it's like we do things because we don't want the bad thing to happen, the thing we want to avoid. That's the biggest battery for us to keep into action or get into action versus, oh, I will move towards this wonderful thing I want, and that's going to motivate me. So I think when we're thinking about the motivation killers, right? Or if we flip it and we say, what are the things that could really keep me motivated? I think we have to ask ourselves what drives us, right? So if you are somebody who is driven by the idea of what you want to create, and that motivates you, then that's something you've got to tap into daily. You got to tap into it daily, and you have to have rituals around how you do that. So I'll give you one of mine. Like, my ritual is I start every morning, I sit in the same chair, same coffee cup, same kind of coffee, and I drink my coffee and I pull up my journal. And I'm not a traditional journaler. Like, I'm not writing like Dear Diary, like that. It's actually my daughter, she looked at the journal one day and she's like, what is this? She goes, what is this? You've got like business stuff, you've got drawing. She's like, everybody finds this later. Like, what is this? And I'm like,
you don't write about boys?
I know, I don't, right, exactly. There's nothing really like, super
juicy,
revealing in there, right? But what I do, I think of it like it's like my creativity source. So in that journal for me, I've got things I'm reading, and I let that inspire me. I map things that I want to create. I write notes about things. I map out my year. Every month I write down all the things that I want to accomplish that month that link to what I said I was going to do at the beginning of the year. And I have a ritual that I look at it every single day. And that helps me in the moving towards. I have a built-in personally, like I'm very, personally wired in around security, right? Which might shock some of you guys because like as an entrepreneur, you think that's not, that's a path for the risk taker, right? I'm not a risk taker. And I know it's wired into me because growing up, my mom got sick when I was young. My brother and I were young, and all that stuff that happens when you have major medical stuff happened. And we were went from being secure, middle class, kind of solid secure, to it felt like overnight, everything financially shifted, and our whole life shifted. So somewhere in my DNA is that thing that is baked in, that at any moment something could happen and everything will shift, right? Despite that, which could show up really as fear and paralyzing fear, and the type of fear that would keep you from ever taking a risk, right? I harness that fear and I say, okay, I noticed it, here it is coming up. And believe me, my friends, everything that's going on in the economy, everything that's going on with this pandemic, it is like a trigger for everything that I carry around with me, right? So when I see that, I go, okay, there it is. That's okay, great. I'm concerned about that thing, that outcome that could be a possibility, this bad thing that could happen. And I look at it and I say, okay, what do I have control over around this and what can I do? And the coping mechanism is, for me, is that I look at the thing I can control, the thing that I can do. And when I do that, that's part of what you're really hitting on here, Josh, is that when I think motivation is manifested through action. So you're not motivated if you're not doing something. So that's one distinction I've made for myself. Like, I can't be motivated and be still. Like, I have to be motivated. And if I'm motivating, I'm moving into action, like, motive, action, those two words coming together. So when I think about that, I think, okay, how can I harness the things that I'm concerned about as a fear and use that to move me into action? And then what's a ritual I could do right now that would tap me into the possibility I want and move me into action? And you guys all have something different, I'm sure, that you do to do that. You just got to find the thing that's the right thing for you. And the key is to do it consistently, to like pick that ritual and say, I'm going to stick with that thing. And I'm kind of curious what you guys, I'm sure you guys have some rituals that you do as well to give some more ideas.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a creature of habit. Like, from the days when we were working in the office, the same size coffee cup, same kind of coffee. I have, sort of benchmarks throughout the day of things that I'm doing at this time. And right now, when we're working at home, just keeping that normalcy. And that's always been my experience as like a creature of habit and routine. I'm just somebody that needs the structure. I would have done really well in the military, I think. Or prison. Yeah.
Prison or the military. Well, wow. Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm a very woo-woo, go with the flow type person, and I resist structure. So for me, actually, it is very important for me to add structure and have that daily ritual, kind of, Jeanine, kind of like what you were talking about. I always spend time in the morning with myself, getting centered, really refocusing on what's important and getting my mindset right. I think for me, that's the biggest one, is I have to start the day fighting the what ifs and if onlys that I wake up with,
Yes.
And so that's what that quiet meditation, prayer, journaling, whatever it looks like for me that day, that's what that looks like for me. And I think that if you can nail that for yourself, and it doesn't have to be long. I mean, some days, I'm a single parent, and right now, but there's, when we're all alone, right? So there's no real alone time for mommy right now, but it's 10 minutes. And if it's an hour, that's a luxury. But if you can grab 10 minutes and get that, mindset right and remind yourself of why you're doing this and what's important to you, I think that really is huge. I know for me, it's a game changer.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I think too, the thing you're hitting on is really important, that where we are right now, and everybody's in a different place, but then we're all in the same place, right? There's kind of a lot going on, and we all have the shared thing of reality is different. The thing, when you asked about the motivation and staying in action, the one really tactical thing I'll say, and this is one of the things that I put in my journals, is that it's about the movement from the big thing that you want to what am I going to do today? That's the gap for most of us. Like, we have this big thing we want, and then what we're doing today. The big thing, I'm going to run a marathon, right? I'm going to be so fit and I'm going to run a marathon. And then what am I doing today? I'm eating some Lay's potato chips on the couch. It's like, and there's a whole story there. We discovered Instacart. I got to tell you, this is a story really quickly, but we discovered Instacart, and my daughter ordered Lay's potato chips on the Instacart. She said, how much is an 8-ounce bag of potato chips? And I said, that's the mini ones, right? And I'm like, probably. So let's just say she ordered so many Lay's potato chips, like we have a lifetime supply of Lay's potato chips in our house right now. Which, like most things, you think you have a lifetime supply, but in this current situation will be gone in a week. So, you look at the big thing, I want to run a marathon, but today I'm eating the chips, right? So if I think about that in your journal, like, think of the big thing you want, but then break it down into bite-sized steps you could take that you can do in increments of time that you actually have. So if you have 30 minutes, a day to work on your side hustle, then look at the idea and break it down into 30-minute things you could do. Because if you make it so big, you're never going to have the time to work on it, because when you sit down and you only have 30 minutes, you're going to like, oh, I don't really have time to, do that. And that's a really practical thing that's helped me a lot, because I can look at my list for the day and I know that's one thing I can move forward. I can move that forward in the next hour, and it feels good. And that's part of what keeps us all moving, is feeling good about the progress we're making.
I think that there's like just some obvious connections to physics, science, in what we're talking about here, and motivation. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. And so you've got to just get moving on when you are in those slow times. You've got to just get moving, and that will propel you along. Jeanine, thank you so much for joining us today. Your experience and ideas are so great. I know you've got an amazing resource to help the listeners take what they've learned today to the next level. So why don't you tell us about where we can go to find out more?
Yes, I'd love to stay connected with you guys. So if you're in a place where you're like, I'm thinking about trying to figure out what my idea is. I want to do something. I'm not quite sure who I could help, or I'm not sure what the idea could be, what problem I could help solve, right? What I'd like to invite you guys to experience is a free webinar training. In this webinar training, what we're going to do, we're going to be walking through the steps that you move through to create and launch an online course. And it doesn't matter if you're not thinking about an online course, you're not sure that's the thing you want to do. What's going to be relevant as we go through this is I'm going to walk you through how to think backwards from the things that you know into figuring out who you might help and how to identify a result you could help somebody get. And then you'll see some examples of how other people like you have come up with that idea and how they structured it into something that they can offer. So you can join me in that. You can go to JanineBlackwell.com/success. So we have a page for all of us here. You can go there, register, pick a time that works for you. And and then let's see what shows up for you as far as ideas around maybe things you've been missing, around what you're really good at and how you can be that helper right now and showing up to help people solve problems that they want to solve.
Jeanine gets the Josh and Amy seal of approval. We've like we said at the beginning, we've both worked with her, and we can vouch for her.
I appreciate it. It's been fun working with both of you guys. Yeah, and I got to tell you, I'm sitting here as I said, I escaped my stay-at-homeness to come to our empty office, and I have this, I wish I could show you, I have a corkboard up in my, so kind of talking about this idea, what you want to create in your life. I have been a fan of success since day one. I consume it all, my friends, just so you guys know. And part of my thing when I sat down and I said, what do I want to create? What do I want this to feel like? What do I want this to be? If you could see it right now, there's a very early in the day slice off the top of one of the magazine covers for Success that has the success part cut out, and it's up on that corkboard. And so it's really kind of amazing, right? To be sitting here, we're all having this conversation, and to be collaborating with you guys is amazing. And I share that because I got to tell everybody here who's listening, the things we're talking about, we all feel that thing, and I can tell you, even back in the day when I was trying to figure out what this business would look like, when I cut that thing up there and stuck that little cover up there, I didn't know how I would do any of that. So it's just about what you want to do and get clear of the type of people you really want to collaborate with and what excites you. And once you're clear on that, you can find your path step by step. So that's what we're going to be, exploring, and please stay connected. Thank you guys for having me. This has been fun chatting today.
And definitely check out Janine's book too, if you get the chance, The Expert Called You. I had the privilege of working with her on that, and it's full of really specific examples of people, and it sounds like you're going to get even more than that in her video training, but specific examples of people who have taken their idea and really brought it to life, and you'll get to see how that plays out in there as well. So check that out too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys. Everybody be well and make the most of our time together, right? Our time with ourselves and those that are really close to us.
Well, thank you, Jeanine.
Thanks so much, Jeanine.
Thank you.
And Bye, thank all of you out there for listening. We'll be back with episode 3 next week. Until then, keep hustling. We will see you.